So welcome to today's new knowledge session. We are trying something a little different today. Our speaker was not able to physically be here with us. So Sandy added one more technology tool to our tool chest, and we are actually speaking with our speaker today through Zoom. So this gentleman is Barry Myers. He works for Strongwell, and he's going to talk to us today about online sales. Before we get started, I heard a couple of phones dinging. Will everybody please check their phones and make sure that they are in the silent position? And with that, I'm going to introduce Barry Myers.
Becky, how about to help Barry? Barry, would it be good for you to know who's in the audience, what they're doing?
I'm having a bit of a hard time hearing while you're back there, but yes, that would be great. If I could know who's participating, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, so from left to right, I'm going to, if you don't hear them, I'll repeat their name for you.
Hi, I'm Judy Dickinson, here in Abington. Judy Dickinson.
Judy Dickinson.
Okay, thank you.
Ron Dickinson.
Ron Dickinson. Okay.
Ken Hay. Ken Hay.
Can you hear Barry?
Not very well.
Okay, so we have Judy and Ron Dickinson, who I'm assuming might be here because Ron does some numismatic. What she said. Yes, what? He's a coin collector, a money collector. We have Ken Hayes here, who is an IT person, and
Dan Swanson, home improvement business.
Dan Swanson, home improvement.
Kyle Craig, computer repair.
Kyle Craig, computer repair.
Susan Blair, online sales.
Susan Blair, online sales. David McLeish, Dreamland Alpacas. And Donna Carneal, The Gather Inn, I-N-N. Is that good? Okay, we've lost his. Okay, Barry, we're still struggling a minute. We can't hear you now.
Hang on.
Hold on.
I put a microphone in there hoping that it would help for him to hear us, but. Okay, Barry, can you, let's see if we can hear you now.
All right, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. We're learning.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we will go ahead and get started. I will tell you that I am only able to see you on a very small screen while I'm sharing mine. That being the case, I probably won't see any reactions unless they're very over-exaggerated. But as soon as I'm done with the PowerPoint portion of what I plan to talk through today, I'll put it to where I can see you on a larger video screen so that it will be easier for us if we want to interact a bit. I do have slides, as you can hopefully see those on your screen now. And once we go through that, I do hope to have plenty of time to answer any questions you may have. I'm not necessarily someone that you may consider an expert, but by the same token, I do have quite a bit of experience in several online selling platforms. And by way of introduction, I'll tell you this. I've been selling online since before 2000. I think it was 97 or 98 when my dad and I actually started selling old G.I. Joe toys and stuff on eBay. That's what it was for. It was all of collectibles and stuff that you sold on eBay at the time. And so I've been selling online ever since then, sometimes in a professional capacity, sometimes in a personal capacity. And so I want to talk a little bit about online sales, online selling, and some of the platforms that you can use. Now, when I was originally asked, when Sandy reached out to me, she said, hey, I'm really focused on eBay, Etsy, and Amazon. I will tell you that that's the focus of what I'm going to talk about today is those three platforms. But the reality of online selling and what I will talk through is really much broader than that. I mean, there are platforms like Poshmark and Mercari for clothing and accessories. There are platforms like AliExpress for imported items. There are all kinds of things. WooCommerce is a great tool that if you're going to host everything yourself and do it on your own website, or Shopify, or all these other tools. A lot of what I'll talk about is going to be specific, but a lot of it is not. So I want to go through some of the basics And I hope there's not a lag, but everyone hopefully will now see a why go online slide on your screen. That being the case, that is an obvious question. Why in the world would you go online? If right now everything is going well with a physical business that you have, or if everything is going, wonderfully in a regional sense, most of the time people are going online because they see, well, there's global opportunity. The obvious thing is, you're sort of sitting in Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, in that general region, and we think, well, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, my customers can be anywhere, and that's very much true. That's the first thing that most people think about when they think online. I can have a customer base that's based anywhere in the world, and that is true. And then you also have to understand, a lot of people think, well, okay, I also don't necessarily have to have a physical space, storefront for people to come into, which is also true. Let's jump here for a couple of things that I would put out as statistics. And I'm not a huge statistics guy, although I do have some in this presentation. I really like to keep things simple and think common sense when we talk about any type of business activity. You don't know me or my background, and I'll only share what's relevant because you're not here to learn about who I am. I'm not here to impress you with any of that, and I probably wouldn't. A lot of you, in fact, probably all of you, are smarter than me in lots of things. But you're listening to me about online sales. I have a background. I have an accounting degree, a business degree, and an MBA. And all of those things, when I look at them, are all based on building and setting the fundamentals for doing business in general. But when you look at online business, when I looked at the numbers from the Census Bureau of retail e-commerce sales, the second quarter of 2019, which was the most recently released numbers, it was about $146 billion, while total retail sales were about $1.36 trillion. And now I'm not amazing at math, but that's almost 11% of every retail sale was done online. That's probably not earth-shattering to you, but you think about that for just a second and realize what those numbers could mean for your potential business, and it just oftentimes does make sense. However, we do need to go through some basics. So, I hope much of this is review, and some of you are probably going to be saying, okay, I came to take notes, but Barry, this is really obvious stuff. If so, good. We need to hear the obvious stuff before we dive in any deeper. First off, online business is still business. Just because you don't have a storefront, or just because you happen to be able to do your work in your pajamas, or whatever the dreams that you may have of doing business online, it's still business. My wife and I run a couple of businesses outside of my day job. Both of them are online. Both of them are reasonably successful, and we do them, in our fringe hours. We do them at the times that make sense for us, and it's all 100% online, but we still have to do the same quarterly filings for our sales taxes. We still have to pay the IRS for the profits we make. We still have to do all the normal business stuff. So don't think that you're going to bypass being in business, the traditional sense, just by not having a storefront and doing it all online. Second, the platform does matter, meaning whether you choose Etsy or Amazon or eBay or one of the other platforms, but let your products decide. Don't just say, hey, I need to start selling online, I'm going to go to Amazon. Don't just say, well, it's handmade, it has to go on Etsy. Don't make that assumption, but your product should guide you. The third point here is that you're rarely going to win on price. The problem with online selling is anyone and everyone can easily go to 15 different places and buy a product just like or very similar to the one that you may be offering. Very few exceptions to that. So if they are strictly price driven, then chances are good, unless you're the lowest price, you're not going to sell it. So the next point is differentiation of your business is different. When you're doing it online, you can't just assume that I'm the person that everybody comes to, so they just come to me. Case in point, I know for a fact if I need something, chances are really good I'm probably just going to go to Amazon and order it if I'm thinking online. But that's not always the cheapest price. But I know I get prime shipping. I may want something that's used. Well, where am I going first? I'm often going to eBay. But I may look a few other places first. But keep in mind the differentiation of what you can sell and how much you can sell it for are not necessarily going to be just driven the same way they would be in a traditional physical space. Next, you're truly in a global market. You don't get to say, well, by the time somebody's 50 miles out of my range, then they're not going to be a potential competitor. That's not true, because the world is your competitor. That's a little bit of a downer, but it's true. Remember shipping costs, and they're only getting higher. I remember when I very first began selling online, I loved offering free shipping. It was a great way to differentiate myself, and it was a wonderful way that I could just, price things slightly higher, and because of that free shipping, people would bite almost every time. It was a great selling point. But the reality of today is that Amazon has ruined us all. We expect it in 2 days, and we expect it free. But I know for a fact, if I'm shipping something that's over a pound and under 2 pounds, usually my cheapest way to ship it is UPS priority mail, and that it's going to range anywhere from $7 to $11 for me to ship something that weighs a pound. That is sometimes really painful depending on what you're selling. If you consider shipping and you consider the price of the items that you're selling, it will make a huge difference in how you have to price things. Because, again, we live in an Amazon Prime world. Last, and this is going to be key for everything I talk about from here forward, keep things simple. Our goal is to do things one step at a time. I know we often like to do all the things, but we really need to make sure that we one foot in front of the other on our approach to this. If you try to approach it all, there's too much, it gets too confusing, and even though the steps are pretty simple, you will get overwhelmed. Now, because I'm doing this technology driven, I want to pause for just a moment. Any technology issues, Sandy, or anyone in the group? Are we doing okay?
Doing great. I'm afraid to speak
Okay.
about it.
Wonderful. Well, let's continue then. Let's keep this simple. I told you, that's our goal. Now, some of the text is a little small on here. Again, I don't know the size of your screen. Hopefully you can read it all. If not, I'm going to be reading a little bit to you. No matter your platform, here's how it works. Number one, you sign up for an account, whether that's Etsy, Amazon, eBay, whatever. There are some variables, but decide the platform that works for you. Second, you create listings. No matter how you go about it, you're going to set up a product listing. Whether that's an eBay auction listing, whether that's an Etsy shop listing, whatever the case, you're going to set up a listing. And this is a very simple step, but I'm going to use simple in air quotes here because there's a ton that goes into this. We'll talk about that in a moment. Third, manage your customer service. This is one of those things where you can't just act like a mom and pop. You have to act like a true business. We're not having a yard sale here. We're not going to treat our business any less important, any less savvy, any less anything because it's strictly online or because it's an addition to what we do in the store. We're going to have to check messages. We're going to have to give accurate and timely feedback, and we're going to have to do a great job with shipping. All those things are going to become components of how we do business. I'm going to give you an example here. I have, and I carry every day in my pocket, I actually posted on Instagram about it yesterday evening. I carry a Leatherman Micro. Leatherman Micro is a very small, I don't know if you're able to see me very well, it's a small, handheld, like a little scissor multi-tool. It's not very big. I've carried one of these every single day, pretty much, since 1997. About a month ago, it broke. Finally, a screwdriver tip on it broke. And first thing I did was say, well, I think that still has a warranty. I go on Leatherman's website. They have a 25-year warranty. I did a little math. I'm 22 years and I'm golden. I type up my warranty claim. I put it in an envelope. I send it to Leatherman. 2 weeks later, I get it back. From a business standpoint, they did an amazing, amazing job. From an online standpoint, they missed one thing. When I submitted my claim to them, they didn't give me directions of what to do next other than here's your shipping label. When it was an approved claim, they sent me an email that said, here's your claim, it's approved. But I didn't know what to expect to happen from there. Here's the thing. When you're managing customer service, I can't easily ask you questions, especially if you're not easily accessible and as quick to respond. So I got my Leatherman back. I was tickled with that. In fact, I gave great praise to Leatherman on my Instagram page about that experience. But the reality is I got lost a couple of times. I sort of had to trust the next step was coming. When you're doing business online, managing customer service looks a little different, and you really need to over-communicate. Because when you over-communicate, you've almost done enough. Okay? Last thing, earn money. Well, see, it's that simple. But there's a lot of stuff that's happening in there. So let's start to break some of that down, okay? All right. First, photos and descriptions. Customers won't give you the chance to answer their questions later. Now, I'm talking about at the point of sale or the point of potential sale. Customers won't let you answer their questions. You can't walk up to them like at a counter and say, well, how can I help you today? Or what questions do you have? Or would you like to see this? they seriously won't give you the chance. To give you an example, I recently had to order a really random belt that fits a compressor at my mom's house that was my dad's, an air compressor belt. Well, what do? I call up O'Reilly Auto Parts and I say, hey, do you sell belts for this kind of thing? The guy says, sure, come on in. I bring the belt in, they get the measurements, they start looking around, and 30 minutes later, they have not found the correct item. He, the clerk at O'Reilly, pulls up his phone, goes to Amazon with the measurements we've taken, and in about a minute and a half, here's the belt you need. There, I'll send you the link. That's excellent customer service for O'Reilly. I didn't get to buy it there because they couldn't find it. I would not have gone on O'Reilly's website and spent that time, but I'll gladly go on Amazon and figure it out for about a minute and a half. You need to be careful when you're listing your products, when you're dealing with questions, when you're dealing with descriptions and the photos, that you answer every possible question that you can come up with. So let's do this in reality. There's a quick example. This is a listing that's actually off of Poshmark. And if you don't know what Poshmark is, it is a website that you can purchase used or new clothing. It's a great website. Both Poshmark and Mercari are both really great examples. But I knew that if I went to Poshmark or Mercari, I could get some really terrible photos because usually these are individuals. I can tell you from looking at the screen here, this is a Kenneth Roberts Platinum Utility Jacket that they're asking me to pay $45 for it in a size large. And I can see they've got 4 photos. I can see they're terrible photos, like they were maybe taken with a potato. And then there's a description down there. All right, everybody see that with me? Let's zoom in a little bit on that description here, okay? This Kenneth Roberts Platinum Utility Jacket in rich chocolate brown is luxuriously fur-lined, including inside the sleeves to keep you extra warm. Durable enough for work, but stylish enough for play, this utility jacket has it all. 2 inside device pockets for both your work and personal cell phones, 2 open-angled outside pockets to keep your hands warm or stow your gloves. Antique zipper pull gives this coat a finished, coordinated look while being fully functional. Will be your new favorite. Well, good for them for having some flowery language. But I have a few questions. Number 1, okay, you tell me it's a size large. I can't try that on. I don't know what the measurements are. I don't know anything other than the flowery language that you've given me. Am I going to buy that based on terrible pictures and a description that doesn't tell me anything? The obvious answer is no. That listing has been active, I want to say, I don't have it in the screenshot there, but she updated it immediately before I went on to Poshmark, which means that's why I saw it pretty quickly. But I think that listing's been active for about a year. Do you think that this person is ever going to sell this jacket? I can't see you clearly to give me a reaction, but I guarantee the reaction is no. All right, so let's move to another listing. This is an eBay listing, actually. Same kind of a setup, but I was looking for just other things, and I was looking on eBay and happened to come across this one. This one is a Paul & Sharp Men's XL full zip button snap Harrington navy, very good condition. Notice, let's look at the information that they're sharing with us. The first thing that you see is there are several photos. You can't see all of them here, but there's several along the bottom under that product image. The second thing that I see, and let's zoom in here a little bit. I love this. Runs small, fits like a large. Well, that doesn't give me everything I need, but the next thing they do give me is measurements. All items were measured in flat lay positions. So they've laid it out flat on a bed or on a floor or something, and they've taken measurements of key areas. Now, you may not be selling clothing, but all of us can take a jacket that fits us really well, and we can lay that out, and we can take some measurements and compare. Notice it gives those measurements, and then it says, please note sizes may vary according to each brand. Refer to the measurements above for more accurate sizing. Colors may slightly vary from photos. Certain colors may wash out due to close-ups and color type. Then it gives me the materials. And then it says, hey, you may want to check out my other stuff. I don't think I need to tell you which listing is better. Now, do I still have some questions? Maybe. But have I gotten a lot of the questions from the previous listing that I'm never going to purchase easily and automatically answered in this listing? I hope the answer is yes. Anytime that I list anything, my first focus is photos matter. There is no excuse for using bad photos. Every single person probably has a cell phone. If you've got an iPhone like 5, you can even take amazing photos. If you're above that, then you can do a great job. Lighting is usually where people get this messed up. I sort of cheated a little bit. If you notice the setting, if you're able to see me, then you notice over my shoulder, I have this artwork on one side and it sort of goes behind me. And on the other, I turned on a lamp. Should I have that lamp in the background of my photos? No. Does it hurt anything while I'm presenting? Well, it casts a little bit of a shadow, but pay attention. Photos matter. Next, descriptions matter. Too much is not too much. Going back to what I said a little earlier, when you have over-communicated in your mind, then you've almost communicated enough. Too much is not too much. Third, what questions would you ask? Answer them in advance with the photos you take and the description. A tape measure or a penny or a dollar bill or something that provides scale is an amazing, amazing, amazing addition to photos. People don't think about that stuff because, okay, oh look, I have a business card in my hand. Well, if I'm in the U.S., I know that the normal measurements for a business card are one thing. But if I happen to go to Europe, or if I happen to be a little fancy and artistic, then those descriptions of what a business card is are going to be different. Be very specific with the things that you put out there. Now again, I hope this is all review, but I see this done very, very, very poorly on a regular basis. So let's not mess this up. If you don't do good photos, if you don't do good descriptions, you will not succeed online. That's a pretty bold statement, but I stand behind it. So, let's talk a little bit about platforms. Before I jump into that, does anyone have a question that they want to raise before I get into the specifics of a platform? Okay, well let's jump in. Let's start off with eBay. As I said, the very thing that I began with eBay was, I believe it was about 1997 or 8, and when I started selling on eBay, it was my dad and me. We were selling my old G.I. Joe stuff. eBay's been around since 1995. They have 182 million registered users. In other words, that's how many people could buy something from you. And 1.3 billion active eBay listings. Now, all those are estimated based on some stats that I found on Overlo.com. There's all kinds of different stats out there, but they all pretty much lined up with this. I will say this. Some sites that you are going to go to, you have to register for, and some you do not. Some have a feedback rating system, some do not. eBay is great in a few ways. One of them is that you do have a feedback rating system. You can look at somebody and see how many times that they have gotten positive feedback. You can look to see what kind of feedback they've received. You can look to see if it's is it a recent thing, or if it's been bad feedback, is it something really stupid? It's like the person who decided that they wanted something unreasonable, and the store owner said, no, I'm not going to bow to that, and so they got negative feedback. I don't have a perfect eBay score. I have about a 98.5% eBay score, and all of those instances where I got negative feedback, I didn't think I earned it, but it does give you a gauge. Another thing about eBay is that you do have some selling account options. You have a personal account. First off, that's the normal thing. That's how everybody started with eBay. That's the traditional eBay account. It's free, and it's for selling extra stuff from the garage, your closet, whatever. Now, you can stick to a personal account and do anything and everything you want to do, but you don't get a store. Now, some of you have probably seen eBay and you've seen that there's an eBay store. That's a business account. It's also free, but you have a business account for selling as a business, but without the desire for a storefront. So there's really a third type. So personal account that's free for individuals, a business account that's free for a business, or a true eBay store. The personal and business accounts are free. The eBay store does have a cost, and it really, really broadly ranges. It goes from $5 a month to $2,995 a month. It's a broad range. There are some perks according to eBay, and I've got them listed on the screen there. You can save, you get free listings and lower final value fees. You can, advertise and send traffic here and there, and do branding on your own and optimize. There's stuff you can do. The reality for most businesses is a business account is sufficient. The only difference in a personal account and a business account is that you get to register as a business name. Strongwell, my day job. If you don't know what Strongwell is, we manufacture fiber reinforced polymer composites, structural composites, big heavy I-beams and that kind of stuff that are normally made out of steel. We'll make them out of fiberglass. We don't sell a lot on eBay, but we do have an eBay business account so that we have the option to sell excess inventory that we may want to send out. Samples of our ballistic panel, that's something that we make that stops bullets. Just stuff. It's not our normal sales channel, but it is an option for us, so we have an eBay business account. We don't want to pay a monthly fee. We want to pay a little bit more upfront for the listing and then pay a little bit more as a percentage of the sale. So we have a business account. So let's talk about what you earn with eBay. Well, first off, it's a little difficult because all of these get a little more confusing. Etsy's really simple. The rest have some complications to them. But let's talk about what those are. First off, you earn everything except the insertion or listing fee. There's a small fixed fee for listing an item. If you have an eBay account, you automatically get 50 of those per month. So for instance, if you're going to sell stuff from your garage, you're probably never going to pay a listing fee. The listing fee is generally pretty small. It can be 30 cents. I mean, it's not much. It can be a little higher, but it's not a lot of money. But most of the time, it's free because you get 50 free per month, unless you're going to start listing a lot of items. You can pay for add-ons, like a featured listing, and you've probably seen this if you've played on eBay. It'll be at the top of the feed, or it'll be bold, or it'll have a bigger picture. You can pay for that extra stuff, but generally speaking, you're going to pay for a listing fee, potentially, and any add-ons that you want. The bigger cost is a final value fee, and that's based on the category that it was listed in. They charge a percentage of the final selling price, and we'll look at a chart on that in a moment. Then you also have a payment processing fee, but that depends how the payment was received. If you own a storefront now, you already know if someone pays you in cash, that's your money. But if they pay you with a debit or credit card, then you're going to have to pay a merchant rate. You're going to have to pay a percentage because of the privilege of using Visa or MasterCard or Amex or whatever, and that ranges 2 to 4% most of the time. Same kind of a thing here with eBay. It's very similar to your normal credit card processing fee. Let's take a look real quick at the final value fee because this ranges pretty broadly. Notice here, and I don't like to put a ton of data because this is pretty easy to find online. I want to give you an introduction though, in that sometimes you can pay as much as 12% of your sales price to sell it on eBay. But you can pay as low as 2%. It really just depends on what you're selling. So I don't want to give you a number. I would rather give you a range of 2 to 12%, and it really depends on the category. So most of the stuff is 10%. I normally tell somebody if they're going to sell on eBay, then when they're figuring their cost of goods sold, they need to average 10% for most items. And that generally will give you a fair cost of goods sold as just a fee to pay. Then you're going to have your normal credit card processing fee. You're going to have any packaging, you're going to have any shipping rates and all that kind of jazz as well. So when you sell on eBay, don't think that it's just like selling in your store. You are going to have those extra fees associated with it. Okay, there are some limitations to eBay. First off, fees can be fairly high. I know that one of the things that I'm doing right now, in fact, most of my eBay activity is actually helping my mom. My dad passed away 7 years ago now, and he collected, well, let's just say a little bit of everything. And he had a lot of stuff that's pretty valuable. But the reality of what my mom wants versus what we want versus what we would just prefer to have the money, I'm pretty regularly just listing stuff on eBay to help her sell through it. And we set aside 20%. 10% is going to be to cover the eBay fees, and any shipping and all the other kind of stuff is going to come out of the other 10%. We just assume that about 80% of what we sell it for is what she's going to get to keep. That's what it boils down to. Now that may be a big number or small, but keep that in mind. The fees can be pretty high. Second, and this is something I didn't know until I was actually researching for this presentation, that most of the buyers are in the U.S. The stats on that are pretty, they argue with each other. So I didn't put an actual percentage number in there. Although most of the buyers are in the U.S., it's the biggest marketplace in the U.S., most of the larger sellers are not. They're actually mostly based in China, because you can go onto eBay and buy little electronic components or batteries or cell phone accessories or all this other stuff, and these Chinese sellers have found that to be a great marketplace for them. So pricing becomes a consideration. We know, generally speaking, that I'm not going to compete on price against a Chinese seller. because by the time I'm selling something, my cost of goods sold is higher than theirs, because my cost of living is higher, because my taxes are higher, because whatever you want to attribute it to, it's going to cost me more. Second, shipping speed and price can then become a differentiator. While you may not be able to do as well on price of the item, you might be able to do better on shipping price. And you might be able to do a lot better on shipping speed. We all know if you order something from overseas, it's generally going to come over air freight or shipping. And when it comes over on a ship, it takes a while. And when it comes over on air freight, it's not any less expensive. In fact, it's usually much more expensive than any domestic type that we could offer here. So, depending on what you're selling, you can oftentimes differentiate yourself there if you consider that eBay is a place where a lot of the buyers are in the U.S., a lot of the sellers are not. Here's the other thing. The reputation for eBay is either bargains, so I can go on eBay and find something cheap, or it's used stuff, and that's the majority of what I'm looking for when I go onto eBay is I'm looking for something I can't find somewhere else because it's used, or it's inexpensive items. Now the exception to that is it's also a good marketplace for rare or collectible items if they can be proven to be like validated. People sell cars on eBay all the time, and now eBay even offers a service that you can go and have someone pay to check out the car and make sure it's actually what it's being claimed to be. Same thing goes with collector's items or jewelry. You can have it verified or validated by a third party before you buy it. So that's just sort of the reputation it has. eBay is one of those things that it's been around so long, it's become ubiquitous with the internet. Again, started in '95, and I got my first computer in about that time that I actually owned. And so most of the people in the America, in the various parts of America, got their computer about the same time. I was working for IBM in the late '90s, and we were all thrilled to death because we had our own personal computer and had the internet. That's just sort of the era that it all came about. So eBay is what it is. Before I move on, any questions on eBay?
You must be doing a good job.
All right, thank you.
I do have one question.
Well, apparently I'm doing an amazing job because everybody's being quiet. Maybe it's because I can't see
I
them.
have a
Can't
question.
give them a dirty look because
We
they're
have
not
a question.
participating or something. I don't know.
Hey,
We'll get to that in a bit.
Barry, we do have a
I
question.
do have a question. Does it bother you that there's so many, because I know I used to be on eBay, there's so many Chinese sellers on eBay that it's hard to compete? I know you just discussed that, shipping and a few other things can compare, but does it bother you when you see that? No?
I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. You
Okay.
mentioned something about Chinese sellers and shipping.
Yeah. I know you just discussed that, but does it bother you when you see so many? It seems like there's so many Chinese sellers selling exactly what the people went out and they're probably doing private label of the product, and then you see the Chinese seller right underneath it.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me because here's the thing. It may or may not be a popular thing to say, but I'll say it anyway. I believe that in the marketplace, competition is competition. And as long as you're playing fair, and that could be defined lots of different ways, you do you. If I choose to buy American, then I also probably choose to pay more for it.
Yeah.
If I choose to buy the cheapest product, then I may be getting an inferior one, or I may be getting it somewhere where the labor is not going to be handled or treated well, or I may be getting it in a place that's war-torn and there might be child labor. I mean, it's my choice. I believe that in the market, I'm generally not going to buy, especially on eBay, I don't know that I ever buy from a Chinese seller because shipping is my thing. However, there is nothing wrong with products made in China. A lot of the times, I'm looking around the desk that I'm sitting at, and I would bet you at least half of what I'm looking at came from China or India. Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay. But am I going to buy something on eBay that's made in China, from China? Almost never.
Okay.
So again, that gets back to what I was talking about before, where you can differentiate yourself based on a U.S. seller or a premium quality item or whatever may work for you. Again, look at the things that you're going to sell or consider selling and look at the sales price that most are getting. You can actually filter, and this is a tip I should have mentioned earlier, you can actually filter when you do a search on eBay by the items that sold. I don't care what's listed on there, but I do care what's listed on there that has sold. When I'm going to sell an item, some people will list, let's say an old collectible item from the 80s. Well, some people might list it on there for $1,000. but the only ones that ever sell are the ones for $10. It's unrealistic for me to expect I'm going to get 1,000. It's much more realistic to expect I'll get 10. That's a bit of a sidebar, but think about that. When you're looking about the price or the quality, then you will be able to pay attention to where it's from and what's sold. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Sure. Any others? All right, well, let's move on to Etsy then. I really, really, really like Etsy, but I also really hate Etsy. I mean, I really, really, really hate it. How's that for being double-faced or two-faced or two-sided on something? But let me explain why. First off, it was founded in 2005. They've got about 39.4 million buyers, and this is a little bit of a tweaked number because you can check out as a guest. You don't have to register. And there's about 60 million active listings. Now, if you remember back to eBay, what you will find is that they're not nearly as old, about 10 years newer, and they have a ton fewer buyers. I mean, so many fewer. However, it's a different world because you can't sell on Etsy unless you're a shop owner. This is one of the things that I love. I love the fact that if I'm going to set up an Etsy account to sell something, then I'm going to have to become a shop owner. I love that quaint, crafty, homespun feel. In fact, when you go to Etsy, you can't help but feel that that's the culture of that site. That's the culture of what you're looking at. It's not big business. It's not a yard sale most of the time. It is someone who is hand-making an item to sell to someone else. It is more one-on-one, it feels. It's more personalized, and it's, in fact, one of the ways that you can get items, and one of the ways that Etsy succeeds is to offer personalization. Now, I've been selling on Etsy for about 5 or 6 years now, maybe a little longer, and I've seen Etsy go through a lot of changes. One of the things that I hate about Etsy, and one of the few things I hate, is that they have begun to allow you to sell craft supplies. Either it has to be a homemade item, or a craft supply, bleh, or a vintage item, and that's another bleh. I know that's a very official term, but I just hate that because of what it really was intended in the beginning. So we'll navigate that as we get through Etsy, but I want you to know both sides before we dive in. First, as an Etsy shop owner, you really don't have a lot of options, but Etsy's trying to expand this. A standard shop owner is what most, and I mean like 95% of people are a standard shop owner. That's what I am. That's what most of the people that you will interact with are. That means that you make your listings, you pay a certain fee, you pay a certain end price, and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then you have a plus member, a plus shop owner. You pay $10 a month and you get a few perks, which again we'll talk about in a moment. And then Etsy just announced last month that they're coming out with a premium shop owner. They've not announced fully what that means. It's all TBD, but late in this year, probably if I had to guess, somewhere close to Black Friday, they'll make this big announcement where they'll have premium shops. I'm sure that's a moneymaker for them. Who knows what that means, but just want to let you know that that is one of the things that's out there. So you can be an Etsy shop owner. What do you earn? Well, let's talk a bit about what that translates into. Just like with eBay, you're going to earn everything, except I love how Etsy has their fee structure set up. It's very simple. There is no question at all about what you're going to earn. You're going to pay 20 cents for every listing. If you have 50 of an item, you're going to pay 20 cents for one item. If you have a quantity of 50, you're going to pay 20 cents to list it. And each time that you sell one and the next one is available for sale, it's another 20 cents. So there's no way around that. 20 cents for each item that you list. You're then going to pay a final value fee of 5% of the sales price, which includes shipping. And then you're going to pay a payment processing fee of 3% plus 25% per transaction. So I can sit down doing my cost of goods sold in the nerd math. I can sit down with my Excel spreadsheet and say, okay, well, let's assume that I'm going to sell an item for $50 and I'm going to do free shipping, which I know is going to cost me $5 to ship. I can sit down and do that math. It's really easy. I don't have to say, well, what category is it going in, or, you know, am I standing backwards and trying to gargle peanut butter on my head this week? I know what I'm going to earn. It is much, much simpler, and I really like that about Etsy. Again, simple is something I like. One step at a time is really easy with Etsy because you know what you're going to get. Now, there are some add-ons with your listing. It, just like eBay or anywhere else, it tells you what those are. You can do some premium features and all that jazz. Generally speaking, it's really obvious the fees are all up front. Okay? So there's what you earn. No complicated table to look at, no complicated calculator to have to work your way through. It's just what you earn. However, there are some limitations. I actually sort of like this though, because again, only specific items can be sold. It has to be handmade by either you or a member of your team. Now, on my Etsy shop, and a minor plug, I would ask that at some point at the end you'll see the URL, but in my Etsy shop, I actually have 2 team members. Me, because I love to woodwork, and my daughter Annie, who is 10, who is very, very crafty and very entrepreneurial. She gets it honest, I can't help but claim that. And so she makes handmade greeting cards, and she makes little essential oil diffuser key rings. They're adorable. And she does all of that. But Etsy won't allow me to list that made by her unless I either lie or add her as a member of my team. So I added my daughter. My 10-year-old is a member of my Etsy shop team, and it's just cute. We'll look at what my shop is in just a little bit, but at this point I just want you to know that they do try to keep it pure and honest to where you're not just buying some crap from China. Sorry, I may have said that a little bluntly. You're not just doing what you could do on eBay and buying whatever from China and then reselling it. It has to be made by you or a member of your team, or it has to be a craft supply. I actually this morning had to buy something for my daughter's Etsy cost of goods sold, some supplies that she uses, and I couldn't find them on Amazon. I couldn't find them on eBay. I did find them on Etsy. So I'm buying a handmade product from someone on Etsy as a craft supply for a product that she makes. Etsy's a good marketplace for that. But you got to be careful, because when you look at craft supplies, a lot of it is the garbage that you would also find on eBay or on AliExpress or wherever else. I just don't love that Etsy makes that a possibility. It cheapens the platform, in my opinion. You didn't come for my opinion, though. You came for the facts. So, moving on. The other thing is vintage items. Now, this is a bit of a gray area because they claim that the item has to be at least 20 years old. And if you look on their site and ask what is a defined vintage item, it's not just 20 years old. It actually has some qualifiers, and Etsy they say they reserve the right to refuse certain items that they don't believe count as vintage. Well, I look back 20 years, and I don't think that's all that long ago to be vintage. I'm like, okay, we're in 2019. That means 1999, and that wasn't all that long ago. Maybe that means I'm old. Maybe that means something else, but that's not really vintage in my opinion. But that's where they start. So there's some additional qualifiers there. If you're going to go in the used market, if you're trying to sell used stuff, I know someone mentioned coin collector or whatever, you can look into this category and see if they consider it vintage and if it meets the requirements. Here's something about Etsy. We all know it, and I mentioned a little earlier, Etsy sort of has that handmade craft fair feel. Okay, that's just sort of what it is. There's a lot of casual shoppers. That's a good and a bad thing. People love to come on Etsy and browse. They love to come on Etsy and get ideas. Maybe they're a woodworker like me, and they're like, I wonder what people are making these days out of such and such, or what kind of thing they're making with, leftover scraps. There's a lot of casual shoppers, meaning that what you actually are going to buy or what you might sell is a lot different than the people are actually looking at. A lot of window shopping. Think about it. If you go to a flea market or you go to a craft fair, you're doing a lot of browsing. You're doing a lot of looking around and a lot less actual purchasing. The second thing about Etsy is there is a potential for bargaining and negotiation. It's not just the price is the price is the price. My wife and I buy things a lot off of Etsy where we'll see something we really like. We'll message the seller and say, hey, do you do wholesale pricing on these? Meaning, if I buy 10 or 20 or 50 of them, will you give me a better price? That is something that is perfectly acceptable on Etsy. You don't do that often on other platforms. You do it all the time on Etsy. Third, there are a ton of questions about customization or personalization. If anybody has really enjoyed this presentation by the time it's over and wants to invest in me, then you can buy me a Glowforge. It's a laser engraver, basically, a laser cutter. I want one. They're about $6,000 for the one that I want. But I get questions constantly. Hey, can you personalize my such and such? Hey, if I order this from you, can you engrave my cousin's last name on it? Well, the answer is no. I cannot with the tools that I currently have. And people think, oh, well, everybody can do that. Well, for $6,000, yeah, sure you can. But I just don't have that willingness to make the investment at this point. But that is a very common request because people are looking for, again, a craft fair kind of item. They want it to be made their way. They want it to be made personalized to them. But that is a limitation. If you just make widgets If you just have, here's what I have and this is all I have, then Etsy may or may not be a good fit for you. All right? So, before I move on to Amazon, questions on Etsy. And again, I'm just trying to hit the high points here because I want to prompt discussion if you have any.
I have another question. I've bargained.
Okay, let's go ahead.
I have bargained on eBay. I've seen the price and then I've said, I gave a lower price and they've accepted it. Have you done that?
Absolutely, and in fact, you actually, when you're selling, when you go through the whole listing process, and I've just debated on whether or not to do that for each of the platforms here as a part of the class, and I thought, man, that's too long, too many variables. But yes, you actually have the option to set a buy it now price, and you have the option to set a or best offer price. So people all the time do that on eBay. The difference with Etsy versus eBay is with eBay, you normally don't have 100 of an item. With Etsy, you normally have a single item, but you are making them, so you can make more.
Yeah.
Whereas with eBay, it's the pre-made item that you didn't make. It's just something you have. There's some variation to that, but it feels different. eBay is, I have a widget. Etsy is, I made something by hand, and if you want more of them, then we can negotiate. So yes, I have done that on eBay, and I have done that on Etsy. Both platforms allow for that. eBay is more set up for that on a one item basis, whereas Etsy is more set up for that on a customized or personalized item.
Okay,
Does that
thank you.
help?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Great. Good question.
Amazon.
Any others? All right. I'm going to do a time check here. Okay, good. Amazon. Let's move on to Amazon for just a moment. And again, like before, I'm going to go through sort of their stats. Amazon, ubiquitous with the internet, but the thing about it is, quick quiz, what did Amazon start out selling?
Books.
Books. I first heard about Amazon when the company I was working for at the time, my boss, she said, hey, I ordered blah, blah, blah on Amazon. I'm like, what? Amazon, never. But she was a huge bookworm. She was early to adopt Amazon to buy books. She was early to adopt the Kindle. When the Kindle first came out, she got one, and I thought she was insane because you're paying for somebody to email you a PDF. You're nuts. But Amazon's been around a long time, and they did start off with books. So guess what? Now, oh my goodness, Amazon, 197. I did the stats differently on this one because you don't have to register to buy on Amazon. You can, but you don't have to. 197 million active visitors per month to Amazon.com. Let that sink in for a minute. 197 million people visit Amazon each month on average, and that's almost half of all online shopping. Almost half of everything bought online is bought from Amazon. Holy crap. I don't know if that's, again, professional or not to say, but holy crap. Now, how much can you buy on Amazon? What can you buy on Amazon? And the answer is, well, just about anything. If there's something you need on Amazon, if there's something you need to buy online, it's pretty much going to be available to buy on Amazon. There's about 350 million different products that you can purchase on Amazon. That counts both the Amazon and Amazon Marketplace. We won't get into too much detail as to the difference, but Amazon is basically owned by Amazon, invoiced and stocked by Amazon. There's also Amazon Marketplace where you can sell on Amazon as a seller, but you're going to inventory it all yourself and going to sort of have your own store. That's a bit of a differentiation, but I'll get into a little bit more of that in just a moment. Let's jump in. Here's how you can sell. On Amazon, you can just have an individual account. All of us probably have an Amazon account. But if you look up an item on Amazon, you can actually, most of the time, near where the product photos are, it says, do you have one? Sell now, or sell on Amazon. Similar to if you're logged in and have a seller account on eBay, the way that you normally will list something is to find one that somebody's already sold and click on, I have one of these, sell now. But you can sell on Amazon. So if there's a book that you finished reading that you don't want to keep, then you can look it up on Amazon. And once you have registered for an Amazon account and told them that you want to sell, then you can actually, most of the time, see sell on Amazon. And you can create a listing that way. Now, an individual account is limited to generally about 40 items per month. That's not a lot, or that is a lot, depending on what you're selling. Then there's a professional account. That's $39.99 a month, and obviously that's going to be for your higher volume sellers. I have never had a professional account because I generally don't sell a ton on Amazon. I do sell on Amazon, but there are some reasons that I don't sell often. We'll get into those in a bit. The other only real benefit of having a professional account for Amazon is that you get access to more categories. If there's a specialty item that you're selling and you can't sell it as an individual, or if you're going to sell a lot of stuff on Amazon, then that's when you would consider the professional account. We'll look at a few details there. Let's get into what you earn. First off, just like the rest, you earn everything, except when you have an individual account, you have to pay 99 cents for every item you list. That's a bit of a bummer, but that's what it is. So you're not generally going to list something super cheap. On Amazon, you'll see listings that start at a penny. You're not going to see that on Amazon unless that you're listing as a professional account. Individual, it's always going to be something that can make your money worthwhile. The referral fees. Here is why I don't list much on Amazon. We'll look at a chart in just a second. It's a percent of the selling price, but sort of like eBay, it depends on the category. However, very much unlike eBay, remember I said the price on eBay was like 2 or 3% up to 12? You can pay up to 96% of the sales price for a referral fee to Amazon. It can be as low as 3 or as high as 96%, and that is insane. Then there's shipping fees, and then there are variable closing fees. Now, I hope, but I'm not sure, that Sandy's going to make available to you the slides later on. I put the link specifically to what a variable closing fee is on Amazon, which we'll look more in a moment, but there's a lot of fine print here. Here's the thing with Amazon. What you're going to run into with Amazon is they've been around a long time. They're very, very, very savvy. When half of the stuff sold is through Amazon, when you buy something online, then you and I both know that they've got their stuff figured out. Everybody knows about Amazon. Everybody knows that Amazon is a place to go shopping, and I can find pretty much anything I want. But there are some limitations, as I said. Fairly high seller fees, and I could have put the vary. It really depends on what the category is. I didn't put that here, but I do want you to understand very specifically that those 96%, that's usually digital stuff, so it didn't cost you anything. But if I'm going to sell a book on Amazon, and I do actually have a book listed on Amazon, have a couple of them, but if I'm going to sell a book on Amazon, a digital copy, anything I make is profit. So I don't care if Amazon takes a bigger share. But if I'm selling a print copy, then there was a cost associated with actually printing that book and having the physical copy and shipping the physical copy and all the stuff that goes along with it. I don't want to pay a huge chunk of my potential profit because of it being a physical item. So you really have to pay attention to your cost of goods sold here. You really, really have to be careful with how you price an item because you don't necessarily know until you start reading. And there are calculators and category calculators and all this mess that you can get into. You can really get lost in the weeds with Amazon for what that you're going to actually be selling in the category it goes in. The other thing, it's extremely price competitive. Amazon has done a great job of, whether it's through a plugin like Honey. If you're not familiar with that, I want you to take a note. For as a buyer, I want you to go and find the Honey add-on for Chrome or the Honey plugin. It is great. It will actually allow you to track the price on Amazon for the last 30 days, and it will automatically, if there's a particular item that you're looking to buy, it will look around Amazon and see if there is a cheaper Amazon listing for it. Because sometimes Amazon will tell you, it'll say, hey, you can buy this from, $4 cheaper from this seller, or whatever, but Honey actually adds on and lets you find it as cheap as it can be found, and you can find it right there in your browser. I have saved a small fortune on Amazon simply following that rule. So whether you use Amazon all on its own, or whether you use an add-on like Honey, then it is extremely price competitive. And I mean extremely. So unless you're willing to sell at bottom dollar, Amazon's probably not for you. Third thing, prime shipping. That's a two-edged sword. Number one, it's a great, great thing as a buyer. I love that I can order something, and guess what? In 2 days, it's going to be at my house, sometime sooner. I actually have ordered something and gotten it later that day. That is wizardry. How in the world is that even possible? But sometimes it is. But we've gotten used to free 2-day shipping. But we all know there's a cost associated with that. Amazon passes that cost on to its sellers. Last is there's a pretty big and long-term history of volatility in the terms and the fees and all the stuff that goes along with being an Amazon seller. So, Amazon, as I said, they know what's up. If there's something they don't like, then they're going to change the terms. They're going to send you an email and say, hey, guess what? We've updated our terms. If you don't like it, go away. Now, that's true of Facebook. That's true of eBay. That's true of Etsy. That's true of anywhere that you could possibly have an online presence, whether it's a marketplace or whether it's not. You're in their playground. It is their sandbox. They get to take their toys and leave anytime they want. But it's their sandbox, so chances are good they're going to keep their toys and give you the option to stay and play their way, or you get to go home. So Amazon just has an especially long history of changing things a lot and never to your advantage. So for those reasons, I don't like selling on Amazon very much. I do have some things through Merch, which is a t-shirt platform. We have sold some things through Kindle Direct Publishing, which is where you can sell books. We've sold things on Amazon just because I had some books that I didn't want any longer. But generally speaking, it's either going to be something I'm going to allow Amazon to fulfill or something I know I'm not going to make much money on. People make a fortune from Amazon. They do. But they've got to play the game Amazon's way. So when you're considering where to sell, if you want to dig into the weeds and figure out based on what you're selling, then great. Amazon may be for you. But as I said very, very early on, what you need to make sure of is that you're understanding that your product is what is going to determine what platform you sell it on. That's why I sell on all three. You know, I like woodworking. I woodwork because all day long I'm in front of a computer or in front of a screen of some sort, and I love to go home and do something with my hands. I have 4 kids. Most of the time after I put them to bed at night, I'm in the wood shop or I'm hanging out with my wife on the couch when we're all done with all of our stuff for the day with our businesses. On the mornings, I exercise Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. On Tuesday and Thursday, I get up and I go out into my shop and play. Well, I'm doing that as therapy. But doggone it, wouldn't it be nice if your therapy paid you instead of the other way around? So that I use Etsy for that. I sell the stuff I make. On eBay, I told you most of the stuff I'm selling is things that are just in the garage. Mom's trying to get stuff that she doesn't want out of the house. But you can also sell actual items. On Amazon, I'm selling products. Selling products that I have created, whether it's books or t-shirt designs or anything like that, but I'm doing it knowing that it's going to be a very low income stream for me. So that's sort of the approach I take. Each of the platforms have their benefit. Each of the platforms has its limitations. Just keep that in mind and let your product or products lead, okay? So, any questions about Amazon before we get to key takeaways?
Do you run ads on Amazon?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you well.
Have you ever run ads on Amazon?
Have I ever bought ads on Amazon? No. My day job is I'm the corporate marketing manager for Strongwell, and we have done a lot of research in whether or not it makes sense to do advertising in any of these platforms, whether that's online selling, whether that's Google AdWords, because you can buy ads anywhere and everywhere. I have never found that as a traditional seller, unless my product is either 1, going to be the cheapest price or close to it, or 2, going to be unique to others, but it's close to something else that people are looking for. For instance, if they're looking for product A and it's gray, and mine's product B and it's very similar, but it's a dark gray, it's just different enough, then maybe I'm going to consider advertising. But just for the fact of getting more traffic, I have not found that the advertising ever pays back. Not saying that it wouldn't, it's all, again, going to be driven by the type of product. Pay attention to your product, and that's going to help determine whether it makes sense for any platform. Other questions?
I do. How about Jet? Have you ever worked with Jet? With I think it's Walmart owns it.
Yeah, there are all kinds of other platforms. Jet is one, Walmart.com. You can sell on dozens of platforms. I have never sold anything on Jet. I do not have experience as a seller, but I do know the platform is very similar in setup to a lot of the other, like Walmart.com, or it's more like an Amazon. But it is, each of them is going to have this same, when I said before, you're going to set up a profile, you're going to pick your listing, The thing that I would tell you when you're considering a platform to do is the very first thing to consider is there a monthly fee? Second is, what are your product limitations, meaning what can you sell versus what can you not? And third, what is the cost of goods sold? So what are they going to charge you? Because obviously they need to make a profit, but that's going to be true of any platform. I've sold on probably 10 different online selling platforms. Again, we've talked about 3 of them here today. Jet is not one of those, but every single one I've ever looked at or used has the same basic qualifications. You just have to figure out the nuances of what is going to cost you, to sell on that particular platform. I know that's not a direct, a really shotgun approach to that answer. I apologize, but Jet, no. But any platform, look at what can you sell and not sell. Is it going to be worth it based on what you're actually going to earn, and then what are they going to charge you to sell something?
Okay, thank you.
Other questions there?
Well, if you don't run ads, I mean, do you have tips for getting traffic to your site or to the product? I mean, you put your product there and nobody comes. So what do you do?
Excellent question. In each of these 3, the platform is already there. So you're going to win based on generally good SEO principles. Now, this is not an SEO class or a session, and oh my goodness, we could spend days just talking SEO. If you don't know what that is, it's search engine optimization. It's focusing on your keywords and focusing on your descriptions. Now, I did answer that without telling you what I was doing when I told you that photos and descriptions make all the difference. You should be doing your research before you list things. When I go to do a new Etsy listing, I actually just yesterday listed a new product on Etsy. Well, guess what? What I did is I went to Etsy and I searched for all the people who are selling anything similar. I looked at how they're describing it. I looked at the pictures that they took, the angles that they took the pictures at, and all that jazz. And then, what did I do? I took from it what I found to be most beneficial. Then, I went to Google. I typed in this particular product and saw what results that I got. Etsy was showing up pretty close to the top of those results. I'm doing a good job. So, what should you do? You should take excellent photos. You should create excellent listings. And in the terms of Etsy, Amazon, and eBay, people are coming to those platforms to buy, so you don't have to worry as much about them. If you were going to set up a WooCommerce or a Shopify or something that's on your website, then it's a whole different ballgame. It's a totally different discussion because you've got to lead traffic to your website. In this case, they're already coming to eBay, Etsy, or Amazon, and your job is to make sure that they can find you based on using really good titles and descriptions and pictures, because they already are showing up. They're not generally just browsing, or if they are, then you've put your stuff in the right category so that you're going to show up because that you've categorized it well and your listing is complete and your description is good. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So one addition there, when it comes to Etsy, I would challenge you now to go onto Etsy and shop for any particular product that you might want to buy. You may come back with 5,000 listings as results. Unless they paid to have a premium kind of an add-on, bypass all those ads and just start looking at any of those items, and you will find that the descriptions and the listings are very, very similar for that particular item. Pay attention to those. And then when you're ready to list an item that's yours, mimic what you see. The ones that are really, really low in the listings, go look at those as well. Go to the last page, and what you'll find is it's either very poorly described or in the wrong category, or just doesn't fit. It just doesn't seem to work right. So it really comes down to your title, your description, and your photos. All right, well, as we wrap up, and I know I've actually gone over time here, I apologize for that. Key takeaways. This is not where I tell you all the key things that you should have taken away. This is where I want you to make notes on the things that you found valuable. So I want to say thank you, first off, for showing up. This was a little bit of a risk. Sandy and I were talking about it. I'm like, well, hopefully this won't blow up. Hopefully we'll be able to do this and it'll work out just fine. But I do want to say this. If you have questions that I didn't address here, then all my contact information, the easy way to find me is on here. My email address, as well as my Etsy shop. One of the things that I did when I decided to do an Etsy shop is, rather than being etsy.com/shop/whatever, I bought a domain and just set up a redirect. living138.com is how you can find my Etsy shop if you're interested. I would encourage you to please, please, please consider your platform based on your product. And if you have questions that you think of after this session, please email me. Jot down my contact information here. This was an overview on purpose. This is not all-inclusive. It's literally simple starting point. So if you have questions or if you get stuck, feel free to reach out. If I can help you, I will. So I'm going to stop the screen sharing so I can see you all a little better. And you probably are now getting a big scary picture of me. I'm sorry for that. But anything else that you'd like to ask before we wrap it up, knowing that we're a little over time, and again, I apologize for that.
Barry, one of the comments I hear from many people who deal with eBay as a seller say that it typically is a buyer's world on eBay. And what they
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Could you speak up a bit?
Okay, many of the people I talk to about eBay say that it is really a buyer's world. And what they mean by that is a lot of the people have sent things in and they've had good results, and all of a sudden there's these people that'll get an item and they try to pick on it or say there's something wrong with it just to get a better price. And they're seeing a lot of that.
I have seen some of that, and honestly, I think that's a fair criticism. But here's the thing.
Okay.
I put as generous of a return policy as possible, and I put a clear return policy. I didn't talk about that here, but when you look at the descriptions of my listings on my Etsy site, which I would encourage you to do, I basically say, if you are not satisfied, if you will ship it back, I will give you a 100% refund. Now, how many people are willing at their own expense to ship something back to me? Most are not. I have had 2 things shipped back to me in all the time I've sold on Etsy. Now, eBay is pretty much seller driven. I have on multiple occasions, it drives me nuts. Somebody says, well, this is not exactly what I was expecting. I want my money back. And I tell them, no problem, ship it back to me. If they file a complaint with eBay, then almost always the seller loses. Not always, but almost always. So I've had to eat some stuff when it comes to eBay. But Etsy and Amazon are generally pretty good. If you file a dispute or if there's a concern, have a generous return policy, and if they're willing to give it back to you in the shape that you sent it to them, great. Give them their money back. If they're not, I'm sorry, here's the return policy. I apologize that you're not satisfied. I was as clear as possible in my description and in the photos that I took. This is what you get.
Okay.
Good question. Other ones?
I just want to say thank you, Barry, for doing this while you're on a trade show, but I appreciate you taking the time to do this for us.
Good job.
Well, thank you for your flexibility. I hope it was helpful. Again, if you did not before get my contact information, Sandy does have it, and I would encourage you to reach out to me if you get stuck somewhere. I don't do a lot of consulting or whatever. Shoot me an email. If you need real help, then we can talk about that. But if you just have a question, shoot it to me. I'll be glad to try to help you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks a bunch.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Okay, bye.
Wow. So I think this was a great session, and we certainly thank you for everything that you have done today to make this session possible, Barry, and it turned out to be very good on our end. So thank you.
Absolutely glad to do it.
Okay. November 20th, our next new knowledge class is Change the Way You Communicate, which I think Sandy did today. And this is going to be with Jenny K. Brown. She has spoken to us before, and so we hope you can join us with our next new knowledge on November the 20th.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you.